After a 5-1 homestand, are the Atlanta Braves back to finally playing like one of the best teams in baseball? We'll discuss that and more on today's episode of Locked On Braves, so let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, and welcome back to Locked On Braves, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your favorite Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I'm your host, Jake Mastroianni. You can follow me on social media at ShortstopOfAll. Check out the podcast there at LockedOn_Braves on X and Locked On Braves on Instagram. Subscribe to YouTube if you're new. Hit that thumbs up button. Leave me a comment down below. And if you're listening on the audio version, you can help out by leaving me a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And as always, thank you so much for making Locked On Braves your first listen each and every day. So many great podcasts out there, so many great Braves podcasts out there. I really do appreciate it when you take the time to listen here on the podcast, and especially those who send me some kind words of encouragement. It means a lot. It's a grind. It's an everyday podcast here, which is great, but also it is a grind. So I appreciate the support and encouragement that you give me each and every day. On today's podcast, we're going to talk about the last two games in the series against the Cardinals, talk about the Braves homestand. Are they back? The offense certainly seems like it's turning a corner. We'll get into all of that on today's episode of a Locked On Braves. And look, it was a great homestand. As Jordan Watley says, it kind of feels like we are back, Jake. And it does. It feels like it. Me and Lindsay talked about it on the postcast. The vibes, are a little bit different around this team. Even though it was a close game on Wednesday, I still just had the feeling like that team was eventually going to score some runs. As long as the pitching kind of kept them in it, it felt like at some point they were going to get that big hit and they were going to win that game. Even in the game on Tuesday, I felt like they were going to be the ones to get the big hit to win that game. Now, ultimately, the Cardinals did in that one, but it's just that feeling that you have, or that I have at least, watching this team now, where it feels like things are going to start going their way. It feels like they're going to be the ones to get that big hit, to make that big pitch. And it has those vibes and that sense around this team. But are they completely back to being one of the best teams in baseball? I still think we should pump the brakes a little bit on that. Now, since an 0-7 start, they are 10-7 in their last 17 games, which is certainly great. And they're coming off a 5-1 homestand where they had a sweep over the Twins and a series win over the Cardinals, two teams that certainly are struggling. So I wouldn't put too much stock into that, but they were teams that they needed to beat, and they took care of business. Now, since that 0-7 start, the Braves have the third highest FWAR of any team in baseball. They have hit the second most home runs. They're third in batting average, sixth in on-base percentage, second in slugging percentage, and fifth in WRC+. So since that 0-7 start, which again, tough competition, and you're going to have to beat those guys if you want to win this year, but since facing the Padres, who are like one of the best teams in baseball, and the Dodgers, who we know are going to be one of the best teams in baseball, the Braves offense at least has been, top 5 in all of baseball, except for one category, and it's the most important category, and that is runs. They're still just 18th in runs over that stretch. And these numbers that I'm giving you is from entering the day on Wednesday. So keep that in mind. So they are a top 5 offense in every category except for scoring runs. And that is the most important category. But I think if the offense continues to, be top, second in the league in slug, and sixth in on-base percentage, and third in batting average, eventually those runs are going to come. And look, their 19th highest walk rate. It's not great. 9th highest strikeout rate. Not great. Those are still numbers that need to improve a little bit. And they have improved since those first 7 games of the season. How could they not? But this offense has made strides in looking like that top 5 offense that it could be. And if they continue to rack up the hits like they are and produce like they are, eventually they are going to be up there in run score, especially if they continue to hit the home runs like they are with the on-base percentage that they have. You're going to continue to get those 2-3 run home runs like we saw on Wednesday. Now, you look at it individually since that 7-game stretch to begin the season. Ozuna has a 208 WRC+, Baldwin 195 in limited sample size, Riley 188, Murphy 155, again in limited sample size, but he's hit a ton of home runs. Olsen 140, Albies 111, although he's had his struggles here as of late. Eli White 101. The only regular for the most part that's really struggled is Michael Harris with a WRC plus of 68. And he got some 3 soft singles on Wednesday to kind of help him out in this area, but it's been a struggle for Michael Harris early on. But everybody else just about, excluding Kelnick too, and Nick Allen in the shortstop position. But, all the other regulars at the top of the order have really turned it around since that 0-7 stretch. Now, you look at the pitching side of things, and this is why I can't say that they're fully back. The pitching has been a problem, even after those first 7 games of the season. They are 20th in ERA over that stretch. They're 19th in WHIP. They are 10th in K per 9, but they're 22nd in walk per 9, walking too many batters. Now, they are 13th in xFIP, which would lead you to believe that perhaps they've been a little bit unlucky. But even the most optimistic view on this stretch would tell you the Braves are a top 15, top 20 pitching staff. And they need to be better than that. But I'm not as concerned with the pitching staff long-term. Either Chris Sale's going to figure it out or he's not. Either Spencer Schwellenbach and Spencer Strider are going to be healthy and good, or they're not. But a lot's dependent on those 3 guys, and they have to be who they need to be for the Braves to get where they want to be. That was not a well put together sentence there. But those are your 3 studs is the point I'm trying to make. And they're either going to be good or they're not. They're either going to be healthy or they're not. You aren't really going to go out and replace those guys. So a lot does hinge on them, but it doesn't really matter what they do if this offense can't get it together. And you can survive a regular season with a good offense because you're not facing all the best pitchers in the world like you are in the first couple of weeks when everybody's healthy and you're facing everybody's best starters. As the regular season goes on, you're going to face a lot of guys that probably shouldn't be in a big league rotation that you can take advantage of and get wins. What made last year such a struggle, yes, they had great pitching and they had to have it, but the offense was such a struggle. But if you, in the year before that, the pitching wasn't necessarily so great. It's just, it was historic offense. You can pass by in the regular season with a great offense. You can't pass by if you have a bad offense. And even if you have a great pitching staff like the Braves had last year, it's still going to be a struggle for you. So even if the Braves offense can just get it together and be like the top offense that they need to be, I feel okay about the regular season. And then hopefully by the time we get to the end, Sale's, pitching the way that he should, Schwellenbach and Strider are both healthy and pitching the way that they should. And those 3 guys can match up with anybody, and you can hopefully fix the bullpen between now and then. But my biggest concern was this offense, and they seem to be turning a corner, which makes me feel a lot better about this Braves team going forward. Now, all that being said, still some things in the last 2 games of this series that I don't like that I want to get into offensively. A couple of key positions at closer position and in the outfield that I really think we need to discuss because I think there needs to be some changes there, or at least a change in the pecking order. We'll talk about all of that here next. Get the supplies you need from the site that's made for the skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400-plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need, delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use the promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's code SH5 for 5% off your first order at supplyhouse.com. Thank you, as always, for making Locked On Braves your first listen of each and every day. Make sure you go check out Locked On MLB for your second listen, solely keeping you caught up with everything happening around Major League Baseball, as well as the guys over at MLB Game Night. They'll have a podcast in your feed every morning when you wake up to catch you up on what happened the night before. I want to jump back into the last 2 games of this series. I'm going to break down the pitching side and the offensive side of things because it was the series win, certainly, but the reason I'm not completely convinced that this team is back yet is that there are still areas of this team that I think they can improve on, which is a good thing because they're playing good baseball. They're winning games. And yet I still don't think they're at their full strength. I still don't think they're playing their best baseball. Still think there's more for this team. And there are things that they can do to get there. Now, looking at the game on Tuesday night, you knew it was going to be a rough one with Spencer Strider getting scratched, not having anybody ready and available to come up and actually be a starter. So you had to go with a bullpen game. But they actually did pretty good. Scott Blewett was good. You probably left him out there a little bit longer than you wanted to, but it was just kind of the situation. He wasn't truly an opener. I know everybody uses the word opener. He wasn't truly an opener. He was a reliever who they were just going to throw him out there and give me as many innings as you can. An opener opens up the game for a starter, and he's maybe going to go through the first 5-6 batters in the lineup, and then you turn it over to a starter that's going to give you some innings. That's not what this was. This was a reliever going out there and stickers saying, give me everything you have for as long as you can. That's what this was. But at the end of the day, Blewett and Aaron Bummer, they combined for 5 innings, 2 earned. So you got through that part of the game, and you had a lead, and you turned it over to your bullpen, who unfortunately just didn't have it that night. Now, I will give them a little bit of grace because it was a wet night, and there seemed to be a lot of issues gripping the baseball, both for pitchers and fielders as well. A couple of errors, I think, for each team in that game. So I'll give them a little bit of grace in that, but the bullpen just didn't have it this night. Montero and De Los Santos in particular were just kind of all over the place. Even Dylan Lee came in, spiked a slider that got away that tied the game on a wild pitch. It was just a rough night for a lot of the pitching overall. But again, the first part of that game, Blewett and Bummer, I thought they did as well as they could. It was just an off night for Montero and an off night for De Los Santos, who in a big spot, bases loaded, 2 outs, left a changeup up, and Nolan Gorman ripped it down the line for a bases clearing double. And that was your ball game on Tuesday. That was the turning point in the game. You just felt like if you got through that and got it out there, again, kind of that vibe and that feeling that I have with this Braves team right now. I felt like, if De Los Santos can get out there, get out of that inning, Braves will find a way to win. And that's just the feeling I have about this team right now, which is really fun. And it's great to have that feeling back. It's been so pessimistic for a while now from last year and then in the beginning of this year, where I just felt like those situations, you just feel like the Braves are going to lose. They're going to find a way to lose, but I'm starting to find myself on the other side of it now, thinking this team's going to find a way to win. They're eventually going to get that big hit, and they're going to find a way to win. And even in that game, I felt like that until he hung that changeup. I felt like the Braves were going to come back. Now, the moment that happened and they cleared the bases, at that point, I lost confidence. When it was pretty much over. Then you had Nathan Wiles come in, make his debut, and then it was definitely over at that point. And then you have a Wednesday early morning game, 11 o'clock. Sometimes those are sleepy games and the offense isn't really there. And that seemed to be the case for both the Braves and the Cardinals. Both offenses really struggled against pitchers that aren't that good. But, give a lot of credit to Bryce Elder, a tremendous outing here. 6 innings, 5 hits, 1 earned, 3 walks, 2 strikeouts on 99 pitches. And the key for Bryce Elder in this one was first surviving that first inning where the command was just all over the place. Walked up about a couple batters, left a pitch up to Arenado that gave the Cardinals the lead, but he did limit it to that. He got a big double play in that inning too. But in order for Bryce Elder to be successful, and I talk about this all the time, got to get the ball on the ground, which he did in this one, which means he has to keep the slider, the sinker, all of that has to be down. And he did that in this one. 9 ground outs in this game for Bryce Elder. That's tremendous. 89.9 mile per hour average exit velocity against. That's pretty good too, under 90 miles per hour there. Hardest hit ball of the game was the double by Arenado at 104. So not a ton of real hard contact. He did give up 7 hard hits, but 3 of them were beat right into the ground, which is exactly what you want with Bryce Elder. And 3 of those 7 did go for hits. Lindsay brought up a good point on the podcast that I wanted to expound upon, and something that I've touched on when discussing Bryce Elder. Again, as I just said a second ago, in order for him to be successful, the slider has to be down, the sinker has to be down. All his pitches need to be down and on the edges of the zone. But as a hitter, what I can do is just eliminate everything below the knees, because you gotta make Bryce Elder bring it into the zone. Now, he did a good job of throwing those pitches, in the zone at the bottom of the strike zone, and that's great. But if I'm a hitter against Bryce Elder, I'm saying anything below the waist, I'm just going to spit on, because it's most likely going to drop out of the zone, and I'm going to make him throw me a strike up in the zone. But what he did different in this game, that if he can do this going forward, I think there's a little bit of hope for Bryce Elder to turn things around and be a staple in the rotation. And what he did well in this game, I thought, was he was able to locate that four-seamer at the top of the zone. And suddenly, if you have a pitch that you can locate up at the top of the zone to make the batter have to respect all quadrants of the zone, because like I said, right now, if I'm a hitter, if it's below my waist, I'm just taking it. And I'm waiting till I get something above the waist because I know it's most likely going to be a hanging slider. It's going to be a sinker that he leaves up, and I'm going to be able to crush that pitch. But if suddenly I have to respect a four-seamer at the top of the zone, which the velocity on that pitch was up a little bit today too, which is great to see if he could keep that going, then all of a sudden as a hitter, okay, I got to worry about that. I got to worry about this four-seamer at the top of the zone. And if you have to cover both quadrants, the top and the bottom, you come a little bit more or less predictable and a little bit harder for the hitter to pick up. So that was a change in this one that I thought really helped Bryce Elder. If he can continue to control the four-seamer at the top of the zone, it's just going to make his other pitches at the bottom much more effective. But for a while now, he hasn't really been able to do that, to locate that four-seamer and to throw it enough for strikes at the top of the zone for hitters to really even respect that pitch, which just has allowed them to spit on stuff below the waist and wait until he hangs a slider and kill it. And that wasn't the case in this one. So a great outing by Bryce Elder. If he can continue to pitch like that, that is the best version of Bryce Elder. And again, sleepy game. Both offenses were really bad early on in this one. But I also want to give some credit to Bryce Elder because I think there was some changes in this one, especially after that first inning where he had to recalibrate because the command was just completely off. But this is the success path for Bryce Elder. And I'm not saying he's going to give you 6 innings, 1 earned every time out, but this is a success path for Bryce Elder to give you, 5, 6 innings continuously and 3 earned or less, which is, again, best case scenario for Bryce Elder. Talked the other day, I think expectations for him are 5 innings, 3 earned, 6 innings, 4 earned. That should probably be your expectation for him. But if he can do stuff like this, I think he can give you better outings than that every now and then. So great job from Bryce Elder at a time where the Braves really needed it. Not only did he give them length, but it was good length, and he kept them in the ball game because, like I said, the Rays offense was struggling against a pretty bad pitcher as well, and he just continued to put up zeros and give them a chance late. So huge game, huge outing by Bryce Elder. And then the bullpen after him, you went back to Montero, and that's kind of the old Bobby Cox thing. You have a bad night as a reliever one night, you put him right back out there the next night, and he kind of struggled again. It was a 3-2 pitch to Wilson Contreras that caught the zone, but the umpire had not given that pitch all game on both sides. So at least applaud him for being consistent, but should have been strike 3. Was not the case. He walks Contreras, gives up a hit. So he gets pulled after getting 2 outs with 2 runners on. And then Daysbel Hernandez. And this is a conversation that we have to have because is Daysbel the best reliever right now in this bullpen? Let me know what you think in the comments section because he's looked good early on. He has looked really, really good. He comes in the 8th inning to get out of that jam, comes back out for the 9th inning and closes the door, was consistently pumping 98, 99 miles per hour. Now that's 1.2 miles per hour up from where his yearly average is, sitting at 98.4. But if he can do that and he can locate it like he did in this game, like he has for most of the year, Daysbel might just be your best reliever. And that's a huge storyline for this Atlanta Braves team that desperately needs somebody to step up. Look, Raisel Iglesias is still my closer. I'm going to need to see a much longer stretch of Raisel Iglesias not being good to just throw away what he's done for basically the past 9 years, where he's been one of the more underrated relievers in all of baseball. But if Daysbel can be this guy for you that can come in and close out games, it gives you another reliever that you can trust in these spots so that you can rest Raisel. You've had to lean so much on Raisel Iglesias last year and even early on this year because you're so desperate for wins and you want to use your best reliever. And Raisel's been that guy. He's really been the only guy that you feel great about and can trust, especially without Joe Jimenez and without AJ Minter this year. Really, Raisel Iglesias is the only guy that you felt somewhat confident in. And now, he's struggling a little bit, but I think part of it is because you've had to rely on him so much. You've had to use him so much. So if you have another guy in Daysbel that you can bring in to maybe close out a game, to give Iglesias a day off, that becomes huge for Brian Snitker. To have somebody else like that is lights out, as Laves says. I mean, that becomes a big thing for Brian Snitker in this bullpen. And Daysbel has looked great early on. He was great in this one. And I think he needs to become that backup closer. I think he needs to be that guy that you go to when Iglesias is unavailable. And I think he might be just the best and most dominant reliever in this bullpen right now, at a time where there are some guys that certainly there are some question marks about. And he's got some fire to him as well. I know a lot of Braves fans like that. I'm not necessarily one of the guys that needs to see all the fire and emotion, but it's fun. And he certainly has that and adds a little bit of flair to it. So great stuff there from Daysville. Just wanted to point that out. I think he might be the best reliever in the Braves bullpen at this moment. Still some stuff I want to get to on the offensive side. Again, they get the win, they get the series win, but these last two games still showed some of the weaknesses of this Atlanta Braves offense. Plus, I want to get into Eli White, who, in my opinion, needs to be starting over Jared Kelenic every single day. We'll get into all of that here next. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. Now, personally, I love the no-shell variety. It's the perfect grab-and-go snack for those busy days when I'm working here at the desk, putting the show together, doing my full-time job, dropping the kids off, whatever the case may be, on a road trip. We just currently went on a road trip. It's great to just be able to grab a bag and throw them in while I'm driving and don't make a huge mess with those no-shell varieties. But hey, maybe you're a little bit messy, or maybe you just like the old school feel of the crunch. They have the in-shell options as well. Wonderful Pistachios is a complete protein, providing all 9 essential amino acids. Whether you're running between meetings or dropping off the kids, Wonderful Pistachios are the snack that works as hard as you do. Get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. So I want to finish off talking about the offense, because I started out the podcast talking about how this offense has turned things around, and they have, certainly. But in my opinion, they're still lacking, at least in these last 2 games. I didn't necessarily have the same feeling in these last 2 games as I did the rest of the homestand before that. There are still times where this offense just becomes way too stagnant of an offense. You go back to Tuesday, and Ozzie had a pretty tough series overall, especially on Tuesday, but even on Wednesday as well. He came up in some clutch spots and just couldn't get going. We harped on that on the postcast, so I won't get into that too much, but he doesn't need to be batting 5th right now. And Ozzie is one of those guys that has huge highs and huge lows, and you got to recognize when he's in one of those huge lows and move him down in the lineup, because right now he's in a spot behind Ozuna, Riley, and Olsen, and those guys are getting on base, and Ozzie's not driving them in. So you got to put somebody behind those guys who you trust and who's swinging the bat well right now, and it's not Ozzie. On Tuesday, Verdugo might be one of those guys, but he's been batting at the top of the lineup. He had a clutch hit on Tuesday to tie the game early on. Big momentum shift in this game, and this is one of those spots that I'm talking about, and they have one of these situations in the first inning of Wednesday's game, but you had 2 on, no outs in the bottom of the 7th, and you couldn't score, and those runners just remained stagnant. And then in the top of the 8th, that's when the Cardinals loaded the bases with 2 outs and they get the big hit. It's that shift in momentum. It looks like maybe you're going to have a big inning, take a lead. You don't. And then the offense comes back out, feeds off that momentum of getting out of that, and they have the big inning. And there's still just too much of that. They were 2 for 12 with runners in scoring position on Tuesday. So a lot of opportunities. And I talk about that all the time with this offense. I talk about them being able to get those opportunities every inning, continue to put pressure on the opposing pitcher, and eventually they're going to get one of those hits and they had some on Tuesday, just not enough of them to be able to keep up with the Cardinals. And then on Wednesday, especially early on, and this seems to be a theme right now, is that early on in the game, especially, they're getting runners on, but they're not doing anything with them, and they're leaving these runners stranded, and they're wasting all these opportunities early, and then they're having to come back late against the reliever, which is fine. I just don't know how many times you can count on a 5-run 8th inning or a 3-run 8th inning like it was on Wednesday. I would love to see them not only apply that pressure early on, but scratch a run across. Doesn't have to be a crooked number, but find a way, scratch a run across early on, get to that starter, get something on the board, and then eventually you get that big 2 or 3 run home run. And it's not just, I'm waiting till I get that 3-run home run. You've already put a run or 2 on the board, scratching one across here or there, and then finally you get that big swing. And it just feels like right now they're still just a lot of times waiting on that big swing. I mean, that was the case on Wednesday. And they got it, and it's great, but you could have already put yourself in a better position by taking advantage of some of the opportunities early on. So Wednesday, you had a couple of singles to start the bottom of the first, and then nothing. You had nothing. And I think my biggest thing here is, and I know Jordan Walker has a good arm in right field, but it's the little things that I talk about with the lack of athleticism in this lineup that really holds them back. But you had Michael Harris on first base, good runner. I've said numerous times I need to see him running more. But then you have Austin Riley, who hits a slow ball through the right side of the infield in front of Michael Harris. So he knows how softly it was hit. He's got to be thinking third base right off the bat. And he pulls up at second. And those are the little things there too. Like, press the issue. You're a fast runner. Take advantage of that. You see a soft single going through the right side of the infield. It's in front of you. Know where your outfielder is and know whether or not you can get to third base. You know they're playing deep on Austin Riley. Be ready off the bat and take a shot there. And he just didn't. And the runners, end up stranded on first and second and don't go anywhere after that. You had runners on the corners with 2 outs in the second, and then Allen gets picked off. And this is where, my own words come back to bite me, because I've been pushing, be more aggressive, steal bases, take the extra base. And here is Nick Allen, first and third, 2 outs, and he's trying to steal and gets picked off. So I love the aggressiveness. I'm not going to back off of that, but you get picked off like that, my man, get a rundown and give Eli White at least a chance to score. Also, don't run in a 2-0 count. Michael Harris is in a count leverage situation, and you're taking off running. So again, love the aggressiveness. Just got to be smarter about it. And I think that's one of the problems with this team is they just don't know how to be smart about some of this stuff. I don't think they've really been taught it, or it's really been ingrained into them how to do some of this small ball stuff correctly. But I don't mind the aggressiveness. You had Eli White run before that, and Nick Allen singled in the center, and that's what put him on third base. So that was great. But then you had Nick Allen make a mistake and getting picked off and then not getting in a rundown. So again, like the aggressiveness, I'm all okay with that. Just got to be a little bit smarter about it. And then 2 on in the fifth with 2 outs, and Olsen weakly grounds out to first base. That was a big moment there. Michael Harris in the leadoff spot. I complained about it before the game. I took it back after the game. He ended up having 3 hits. Now, they were all softly hit in that one. He got a lot of good batted ball luck all in one game. Austin Riley had some of that in the series too. But he gets a clutch RBI single in the 7th inning. Again, another soft single that he just floats over the second baseman's head. So a good day for Michael Harris there. I still think just put him through the 5-7 spot in the order and let him get going and leave him alone. Don't try to force him. I get it. He has speed. He feels like a prototypical leadoff hitter, but it's just not him. I know he had a 3-hit day here, but I'd rather you just put him in the 5-7 spot, take that pressure off of him, and let him get going. Then after singles by Olsen and Ozzie, you had Murphy pinch hit for Drake Baldwin. Don't mind it. Baldwin gives you pretty good at bats too, but obviously Sean Murphy's been one of the best hitters for the team since coming up. And then he does an accidental sacrifice bunt, and you can see how small ball effectively works as they move the runners over. And then Eli White hits a sac fly, but it goes into the seats for a 3-run homer. So let's talk about Eli White for a second here. I mentioned this after the last road trip when Eli White actually got to start 3 games in a row. I said at that point, I'm starting him over Jared Kelenic. And then that just never happened. Braves were winning games, so just stick with it, I guess. But Eli White's giving me better at bats than Jared Kelenic. Eli White needs to be playing every day over Jared Kelenic right now. And that's just, I don't even think that's opinion. I think that's just fact at this point. Eli White needs to be playing every day over Jared Kelenic. My outfield right now is Eli White, Michael Harris, and Alex Verdugo. So unfortunate for Jared Kelenic. I think when Acuna comes back, he needs to be sent down to give him everyday at-bats to see if he can turn things around and get it going. But Eli White's giving me better at-bats than Jared Kelenic, and you need all the good at-bats you can get in this lineup. So for me, I think Eli White needs to be playing every day. But again, let me know in the comment section below what you think. Miguel Fria, Eli needs to play every day. Certainly agrees with that. Laves, Eli White's been putting up great at-bats all year. Again, I think it's a no-brainer from what I've seen with my eyes, unless they're just really trying hard to push this Jared Kelenic thing to get it going. I don't care what hand is on the mound. I don't care if it's a righty or a lefty. Eli White's giving you good at-bats. You stuck with him with a righty in this situation where you very well could have pinch hit Alex Verdugo for him. So kudos to Brian Snitker for giving Eli White that at-bat against a righty. I think he was probably saving Verdugo for Stuart Fairchild, who was on deck. but he sticks with Eli White in there against a righty, and he wins the game with a 3-run homer, and he's got a torpedo bat. So, whatever that works. But I think Eli White needs to be playing every day. He's earned it so far with the at-bats that he had. Look, if he cools off, then sure, switch him. But for right now, put the guys in there at the bottom of the order who are giving you the best at-bats, and that's Eli White right now. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. A little bit of news just to cover from the last couple of days. Spencer Strider had a grade 1 hamstring strain. He's going to be out at least a few weeks. We still don't exactly know the timetable yet, but it was best case scenario. Still not great because he's going to be out for a while. Then we'll see if he has to get ramped up again. Just not off to the great start for Spencer Strider this year. Beginning the season on the injured list, making one start, and then getting injured and missing at least another 2 months, another half a month at least for Spencer Strider. So certainly don't love that. And then Jesse Chavez called back up. We talked about him on the minor spotlight this past week, how good he's been at Gwinnett. We knew we were probably going to see him back at some point. Thought we were going to see him in the game on Wednesday, but Bryce Elder pitched so good, you really didn't have to go to him. But Jesse Chavez back up with the team. Maybe he's there for the vibes too. You get Verdugo on the hitter side for some vibes. Now you get Jesse Chavez as well. Maybe that'll get this team going. But the Braves now head out west where they're going to face the Arizona Diamondbacks and the Colorado Rockies, try to finish off this month strong. The Braves are 10-14. I mentioned it last week. What do the Braves need to do to survive this month, this first month of the season? And I said that the very minimum, they got to get to 12 wins. They're 10-14, so at least 2 wins on this West Coast trip, but certainly hoping for more than that. And really just hoping to see this offense continue to grow, continue to have the good at-bats up and down the lineup, and string together good at-bats, string together some hits in innings, be able to scratch some runs across, and then know that eventually they're going to get that big 2-3-run home run to give them a big inning. But that's really what I want to see for them as they head out west. We'll preview that series more on tomorrow's episode, and then we'll have our mailbag episode on Friday. But that will do it for this episode of Locked On Braves. Thanks so much for Protect PR, Miguel, Live S, Sugar Brown in here, Jeffrey Humphreys, appreciate you, David Agnesia, Docs Cards in here. Thank you all for joining me live on today's episode. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, thumbs up button, leave me a comment down below. Follow us on social media at ShortstopBall, at LockedOn_Braves on X, and Locked On Braves on Instagram. Make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe to the Locked On Braves podcast wherever you get your podcast, and we will talk to you next time.